Hello and welcome to Caring Matters podcast. I'm Liz Tassone, the volunteer host, and I'm here for part 2 with my interview with Nan Fischer. Nan is a professional coach, and she's written up some guidelines for asking for help that she uses in her profession, but it also is very appropriate for caregivers because caregivers find themselves so often in a place of needing help, but maybe not feeling maybe need a little encouragement when it comes to actually asking for help. So we felt like this topic was real appropriate for the caregiving role that you all might be playing. So she came up with an acronym, A, S, and K. Part 1 we talked about A and part of S, and in this part 2 we're going to do the S and the K. So let's begin with finish up the S's.
Okay.
And move on to the K after that.
Okay. This isn't part of the acronym, but it just dawned on me that one of the reasons that people don't ask is because they get caught in what you could call the Superman or Superwoman syndrome. That whole idea that, that the person is looking to them, so they have to provide everything. So you want to be aware of the Superman or Superwoman syndrome.
Good point.
Yes.
That could be under the S for
That's
Superman.
Right. Yes. Right. And the other part of S that we didn't talk about was this idea about show me someone I disagree with and I'll show you my teacher. So Liz and I talked about this in terms of this is a chance to ask yourself when there's a situation that's that's not quite right and you're feeling like there might be some dissonance or some conflict, is to be able to step back and ask yourself, well, what's really going on here? And what is it that this person could be teaching me or helping me with, and I'm just not seeing it?
Mm-hmm. I have a friend who's a caregiver for her mother, and she said her whole life her mother has told her she needs to be more patient. Mm-hmm. And her mother is now has some dementia and is moving quite slowly. And my friend said, I am learning patience. This is the first time I'm truly getting the lesson. So that teacher can be a teacher of patience. Because I think sometimes we think, well, it's a bad situation, it's just terrible. But this can be a time to just kind of say, well, what's going on here, like you say. And oftentimes when things don't go well, that's the time that we learn the most from our failures or whatever, and we can stop ourselves and say, what might I do differently? What do I need to learn here to make this situation a little bit better?
Yeah, so, great point. And so rather than let it be a polarizing experience and keep people apart, it's a way to step into it more. And one of my favorite quotes that I use in coaching is, and if you can't get out of it, get into it.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's this idea of, of really putting yourself into the situation and assessing what is really happening, because there's always something to be learned in that. And usually what the lesson is something that you need in order to get out of the situation in a positive way.
In a positive way.
Right.
Not to add fuel to the fire, but instead to stay present to it.
Yes.
And see how you might make it a more livable and loving situation.
Yes.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're moving on to the K's.
Right. So the big one in the K is, knowing when to ask for help is a sign of health. And that comes down to me to this idea of taking personal responsibility for oneself, knowing yourself well enough to know what your limits are. What you can and what you can't handle, and knowing that before you get to the place of either burnout or resentment or despair, but being able to head that off at the pass by knowing yourself well enough, and then knowing that asking for help is one of the healthiest things that you can do, not just for yourself, but for everybody that you're connecting with.
Right, not just your loved one, because they're obviously going to be benefited by you getting some extra help or by being in a better frame of mind. So that's a given. You yourself will be better off, and the people you've asked for help from will feel hopefully honored and
Yes.
and maybe give you some help either in a literal way where they're actually doing some of the work of the caregiving, or maybe just, you know, taking you to lunch and just having someone to sit and talk with, somewhere to vent or somewhere to put all this heaviness that you might be feeling. So a good friend could do that for you.
Yes, exactly. And then also, another part of the K acronym in asking is it can kickstart relationships by letting others in. I'm sure you can count a number of experiences in your life where, you know, you've had to ask for something and it opened all kinds of doors. And some of my best connections and friendships started by asking for something, you know, and then it grew into finding out that you had so much in common with that person, or because you made yourself a little vulnerable, it created the opportunity to really connect at a deep level early on.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think about, as you say that, even with my own cancer journey 10 years ago, I needed the help and had to ask for a lot of help. And the people that, first of all, wanted to help, they wanted to do something, so they felt honored to be asked. And I learned a little bit of humility and vulnerability in that, which was a good lesson for me. But you're right that when someone helps you, then it begins to build a relationship, and then you want to help them if they find themselves in need, and it's a great fuel for a deep relationship. So very good.
And then the last one in the K section on the acronym is kindle curiosity. And what I mean by that is, so if something is happening that you're not quite understanding, and this could be with the caregiver, you know, rather than make a judgment about, oh, he's grumpy, or, you know, or she's intolerable, whatever you're feeling, is to ask the person, to get really curious, like, well, what's happening for you? You know, what are you feeling, or what are you thinking? And so being really curious is a way to, it's really an antidote for judging. So we can replace judging another by getting really curious and really wanting to know what their experience is. And generally that's a great bridge building opportunity. Because when we judge, then we can shut down the connection or the communication.
Yeah, and I just think about the importance of tone in a question like that. If I say, what is going on with you? If I get that, I'm going to shut down.
Right.
I'm going to get defensive. But if someone sits next to me, puts their hand out and says, what's going on with you? Then there can be this outlet. So tone's important in that question.
Definitely.
And in that curiosity, not like you say the judgment part of it, but the deep curiosity, the beginner's mind of just wanting to know more, of wanting to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful way to enter into a caregiving day.
Yes. You know? Yeah. And I love that reminder about the beginner's mind. You know, as if you know nothing. You know, as if you were just meeting this person for the first time and asking them, so tell me about your experience, because I really want to know. Yeah.
And even a mother-daughter relationship or a long-time spousal relationship, you're still learning something new about that person. And oftentimes we do make the assumptions about those we think we know best and love the most. But wouldn't it be great to kind of turn back and say, I'm going to treat you as if I don't, so that I can learn about you and see what you might learn about this person as a result. So it's a great start.
Yes.
Okay, well, Nan Fischer, thank you for this. I think it's something that's really appropriate for caregivers, just a reminder that you're not in this alone. There's a lot of people that if you ask for help from others, they'll feel honored by your asking. And I think everybody involved, both the caregiver, yourself, and anyone you ask for help from, will feel honored by it. And it's kind of a win-win
Definitely.
situation.
And you have permission to ask. You can
Nan gave you permission.
have permission to ask for what you need.
Yeah.
and want.
Yeah, it's a great reminder for
Yes.
us, so thank you.
Well, thanks for asking.
See, I had to ask her to be on this program, and she said yes, so that worked out
And I was
well.
honored.
Very good. I want to just point out our sponsors on this website because they're a big help for us. It's Vitas Hospice, Hillebrand Home Health, Home Care by Blackstone, Family Bridges Home Care, Lifespan, and Bailey. So once again, I'm Liz Tassone. I want to thank our guest, Nan Fischer, for being with us today. And always remember that caring matters.